All right. After that little snow introduction, I'm going to tell you about this flyer that I have framed on the wall. And this is a flyer from the very first time I saw the Dickies. And before this show in Anaheim, California, I'd never heard of the Dickies. I drove all the way over to this show from Needles, California to see the Circle Jerks in fabulous Anaheim at the Celebrity Theater. And the Dickies impressed me to the point where I remember sleeping in my car in San Bernardino on, I think it was Highland Avenue, outside of a Music Plus, so that when the store opened, I went inside and bought a couple of cassettes by the Dickies, and I listened to them consistently on the long drive back to Needles, California. Anyway, this is the flyer from that show, and I recorded the Circle Jerks part on a cassette, which I can't find. Anyway, I had the little cassette deck that I snuck in, because this was back in 1988 when you had to sneak in recording devices, and I put it under the seat because the Celebrity Theater had seats. Anyway, put it under the seat with it recording, and I went down onto the floor and whipped it up with the Circle Jerks and everybody else that was having a great time at this great show that introduced me to one of my favorite bands, the Dickies. Okay, next flyer. This is the very first time I ever saw the Giant Bong Hits, which is GBH. And this also was the very first time I ever went to Los Angeles. This was right after I moved to Needles, California from Washington State in I moved to Needles, California in 1986. And this was the very first time I ever drove over to Los Angeles, and the very first time I'd ever been in the Los Angeles area. And as you can see by the date, it was 1987. Anyway, this show, I was late showing up, so I didn't get to see The Accused. And the reason why I was late is because the dome light in my car didn't work, and it was getting kind of dark, and I was reading a map on how to get to Santa Monica, California. So I remember I was getting into this show at about the halfway point for the Circle Jerks. Maybe, I don't know, they'd played like 20% of the set. So I remember after this show there were policemen outside and they were chasing the kids around, and I ran around the side of the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium where I had my car parked in an alley on a side street, from what I remember. And on the way home I got lost again because I couldn't read my map and the dome light wasn't working. And anyway, first time I ever saw GBH. Not the first time I'd ever seen the Circle Jerks. I saw them in Portland, Oregon at the Satiricon before this. But anyway, that's the flyer from my very first Giant Bong Hit show and my very first trip to Los Angeles, California. All right. Now this is a flyer from the very first time I ever saw The Exploited. And this was at Fender's Ballroom in Long Beach, California. And this was 1988. And driving to this show, I didn't get lost. And it was a crazy show. There were lots of fights, lots of people beating each other up, which was kind of too bad. Actually, it was really too bad. It was a Golden Voice show. I finally found this thing and framed it as nice as I could. But anyway, very first time I ever saw The Exploited. Long Beach, California, 1988, with rich kids on LSD opening up the show. Now let's get to some records. All right. Enough of going down memory lane out there. I'm going to show some records that I just got in the mail, and they're, well, I think they're exciting. Anyway, first of all, here is my COVID-19 vaccination record card. I got a vaccination for the COVID virus on 12/21 of this year. And it even says Pfizer, so I got the Pfizer version. And on the 19th of next month, I go back to get the second dose of this. And on the back of the card, it says, reminder, return for the second dose. Anyway, so I got the shot, and I didn't feel anything from it. But I work in an ICU in a hospital, so I was one of the first ones to get it. Lucky me. Okay, let's get on to the records. First one is The Lewd. This is a repressing of a really old, I guess a bootleg. But anyway, it's lewd conduct in a public place. This vinyl is incredibly heavy. Here's the little story about the record and the band and the people who put the record out. A couple of lyrics for songs and band members and the guy who ran the Mabuhay Gardens. What was his name? It says on here. Yeah, Dirk Dirksen. They write some little paragraphs of wild stories about the lewd. And here's the Subterranean Records mail order catalog for June 2001 that came with this really exciting record. This is the Lewd on their second trip to San Francisco. So I guess the players on this thing are J. Satz Barrett, Blobo, Bob Click, Carl Sacco. And the quality of this is kind of good, but the equipment keeps cutting out. So that like the song will get kind of quiet, but the reason why it got kind of quiet is because the guitar stopped working, or the vocals stopped working, or somehow the bass guitar, the equipment isn't doing the right thing, and it's fading in and out. So it's not the quality of the recording that makes this thing, you know, not the best quality. It's the quality of the instruments and equipment that the band is using. So that's kind of a rare thing. This has got all the early songs on it, and then it's got some songs that aren't on the Kill Yourself Again compilation, double LP. One of them is Bang Bang, which I guess is a Sonny and Cher song, but the way the Lewd does it is, it just makes it something you're going to listen to again and again if you're into the fabulous Lewd from San Francisco and Seattle. Plus Dirk Dirksen's little comments at the beginning of this are really funny as he berates the crowd. Alright, next record. I've shown this one before. This is the Lone Cookies compilation, and one of the standout bands on this thing is 10 Minute Warning from Seattle, which is a very early version of The Accused without that guitar player that made The Accused sound just unforgettable. This is a record that I bought, and it's all the 10-minute warning stuff. There's a little poster that came with it. Here's one of the records. And Here's the other one. So it's a double LP. And this is what the jacket looks like. And it's called The Lost Months. And if you're into The Accused, or you're into the Farts, or anything that Blaine Cook has going on from the past and now, you should enjoy this thing. And there they are. Well, there's a flyer. They warming up for the dead Kennedys, and there's flyers of Poison Idea, the Farts, because this is a Pacific Northwest type situation. Anyway, this is everything they ever recorded. And I mean recordings from like a basement rehearsal. And, you know, a copy of the stuff that's on the Lung Cookies. So if you're into, I guess, The Accused, if you're a fan of The Accused, you'll want to seek this thing out. And it is, I can't even read the record label stamp on this. American Music or something like that. Anyway, you can get this on Discogs. It's not very expensive. And it's just crazy, more punk rock than metal, but like metal punk, from the dudes that eventually became The Accused once they brought in that Tommy guitarist. So I guess the best way to explain this thing is this is The Accused without Tommy. And the guitarist on this is the bass guitarist from Guns N' Roses. Can't remember his name because I'm not into Guns N' Roses. But anyway, I guess you would say that this is The Accused with the Guns N' Roses bass player playing the guitar. One more thing. I know I showed this before, but this is really good. And if the new Descendants record is anything like this little 7-inch, then get ready for a new Everything Sucks. I'm not a big fan of the last Descendants record. It didn't have much going for it. You know, there weren't any songs that were memorable as far as I can remember. This is a step in the right direction for the Descendants. Okay, that's it. I should go make a snowman. Good night.